The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Access Television, the City of Oshkosh, the Oshkosh Cable Television Advisory Commission, or Time Warner Cable.
Everyone, welcome to another edition of Eye on Oshkosh. I'm Cheryl Hentz, along with my co-host Tony Palmeri. On this edition, we're going to be discussing something that is a rather controversial issue. It has been for about a month now here in the city of Oshkosh, and it started because a couple in our community who belong to a national group called the Compassionate Friends lost their daughter tragically in a car accident about 3 years ago. They wanted to, and they approached the city about having an angel statue. It's actually called the Christmas Box Angel statue, placed in Menominee Park. This was something that was approved by the City Council on January 24th after having passed the Advisory Parks Board prior to that. And they are raising the funds to do this themselves. And as I said, the City Council has approved this placement in Menominee Park. And we'll talk about the specifics of it in just a moment or two. But the controversy started because another city resident, who will be joining us later in the show, belongs to a group called Freedom from Religion Foundation. It's a Madison-based organization, and they are saying that this is a religious-type statue, and therefore there are separation of church and state issues at risk here. They have threatened to sue the city if the statue goes into the park, and the controversy has gone from there. So we're going to talk about both sides of the issue tonight. It's emotionally charged, so please just bear with us as we kind of work our way through this. We're very pleased to welcome to the show Sharon Fisher. She, as I said, she and her husband Jesse lost their daughter Alyssa just a little over 3 years ago, I believe, correct?
Right.
Right. And how old was she?
20.
Very young. It's a tragedy to lose a child at any age, but especially when they're just beginning their adulthood, and you have our sympathies. Tell us a little bit about the Compassionate Friends. Let's start there and then kind of work our way forward to today. What's the Compassionate Friends?
It's a grief group. It's a self-help grief group for parents, grandparents, and siblings that have lost a child, a grandchild, or a sibling, to come and work through your grief with others that have had the same type of loss.
Okay. And you and your husband Jesse have been members since right after Alyssa was killed, or?
We took it over about 2 years ago, so it was we were out about a year or so before we took it over and kind of got it up and going again.
Okay, so when you say took it over, you're talking about like a local chapter?
Right.
Okay.
It had kind of faded out, and they were no longer registered. There was just there was a counselor that would just show up in case anybody else did. And after a few times doing that, we decided to take over the chapter and get it up and running again and get the word out. I thought it was needed badly because there was a lot of young children, young teenagers and such.
Sure.
Dying.
And you, who came up with the idea for the Christmas Box Angel statue?
That would be me.
Okay. And tell us how this came to the city. What steps did you and your husband take to get it to the city?
First I called Tom Stefani from the Parks Department and told him who I was, the group I was in, what I was thinking of doing. And he told me to write a letter to the Parks Commission and send pictures and sizes and whatnot. So I did that, and they all agreed to it. And then a couple more months passed. It was kind of a slow process. And in January then, they took it to the city council, and they approved it.
Okay. All right. Tony?
Sharon, thank you for being here. We know this is very emotional for all parties involved. Can you talk about your daughter for a little bit? What do you want people to know about Alyssa? I've read about her in the paper. She seemed like a real special young woman.
She was.
Tell us about her.
She was very well liked by boys and girls. She had so many friends. And she got a camera for her 8th grade graduation. And so all through high school, she would take that camera to school and take pictures of her friends. And she was known for her neck hugs, where you just grab somebody around the neck. And she had so many pictures of her and her friends that we went through for her funeral, and just put them up on a bulletin board and let them take them after the service. She was so well loved by both. I don't know what to say. She was my best friend, and I was hers. She loved her brother. The night she died, she was saying how proud she was of her brother and how I was her best friend. Just a very sweet girl.
And I think everybody in Oshkosh really identifies with what you're going through and really admire what you're trying to do. It seems like a very beautiful gesture that you're trying to serve all parents that are in a similar situation. Talk a little bit about more about what the Parks Board did. Is it true that you looked for several locations in the park?
Yes, we did. One day Tom Stefani took my husband and I around, pointing out different areas in the park that would be available, which one we would like, because they would be available to put it in whatever spot.
And where is the location that you prefer?
The one that's picked out is right next to the Legion, right off of Washington. It's kind of behind the water treatment plant.
By where the statue of, is it Carl
Yes.
Schurz? Right there, would it be near that statue?
Right, it would be more behind the water plant.
Behind
I
the
don't
water
know.
plant. Okay. Where were the other two locations in the park?
There were actually several. There was one other location we were, that was our first choice, and that was over by the point where they have that half circle drive. But there's residents right close by there, and Tom said that sometimes they have a problem. They don't want anything put up in the park in that area. The residents don't like that because of the beautiful view they have. And so I said, well, then let's not go there, because I don't want any negativity brought into this project. I don't want to make anyone feel bad or be mad about it. So then we chose this second choice.
Because it's kind of a secluded site.
Right.
in-
We
in
didn't
a
think
way.
anyone would have a problem with it here.
I was at the city council meeting where you spoke, and the mayor read the letter from the organization, and the issue of whether this is a religious symbol came up. And your position was that you think this is a religious symbol if someone wants it to. Talk about that a little bit more. In your judgment, this angel is not necessarily a religious symbol. Is that right?
Right. There's secular views of angels also. They are seen. Some people don't believe in angels, and they see them as like storybook characters, like gnomes or pixies, fairies, that type of thing. And then, of course, there's the religious aspect of it, and angels cover many religions. They're in many of the religions, so it's not zoned into Christianity, which I've read quite a bit about in opinions in the paper.
Well, and it's certainly, angels have been commercialized so much over the years, especially in recent history. The name of the statue is the Christmas Box Angel Statue, and we'll be talking with Mrs. Gams a little bit later about what she really objects to, if it's the word Christmas or the fact that it's an angel or a combination of both. Tell us about what the statue is going to. Is it actually going to say Christmas box angel statue on it, or and I've also heard that there will be some bricks on it that parents can have their child's name or whatever. Tell us a little bit about how it's going to look.
Okay. It does have to have Christmas box angel labeled on it. That's just one of the prerequisites to having this statue. This statue was commissioned by Richard Paul Evans, the writer of the book called The Christmas Box, and that's one of the things he expects on there. And yes, along with the angel, we wanted to have bricks surrounding it on the ground that people could have engraved with loved ones' names on it, living or dead, you know, either one, in honor of someone. Some people are buying them in honor of their children that are with them yet. But it's kind of a special place that someone can go to, especially people that their graves are out of town. I myself have a hard time going to the cemetery. It's very depressing for me, and it brings up a lot of pain. But to go to this place and to see your child's name or your loved one's name in a brick kind of helps verify that they existed and that while they were here, they mattered.
Okay. And as far as the size goes, can these bricks continue to expand over time, or will this be restricted to a select type area?
I would think that it would be a set size, so that we can have a finished product, and then as we need more bricks.
Oh, go ahead. If I'm going to sneeze, I'm going to sneeze, and everyone's going to hear it.
So we could have a set size, and then as people need bricks, if they take out a blank brick and put, you know, an engraved brick in there.
Okay.
Have you been to other cities, Sharon, where the statue is in place?
Yes, I was in Milwaukee in February. My husband took me past the statue there.
Where do they have it in Milwaukee?
It's right across from a hospital, and I'm not sure if it's St. Joseph's.
Okay.
I'm not sure what hospital.
Okay. And when describe for people, if you can, I don't know if you have enough experience with it, when people go to the statue, it's a grieving spot, is that right?
A grieving and a memorializing, you know, a time to think happy thoughts as well.
Right. So how then is that different? Some people have said, well, then that is similar to what you would see at a cemetery. Does that not then make the public park into at least partially a cemetery, or is this something different?
I would say it's totally different. It doesn't mark a body. It doesn't mark a place of a body. And the part we chose is a beautiful spot, I've been told by many, and with the lake there, people can sit down and relax and meditate and think things out. And it's in a positive area. It's in a park. It's where positive feelings can come out about your memories of your loved one.
I know that in some cities, Sharon, where the statue has been put up, the author of The Christmas Box Angel, is it Richard Paul Evans, you said his name?
Yes.
That he actually comes to the city and speaks at the unveiling of the statue. Would that happen here too?
I haven't asked him.
Okay.
I mean, we're so early in the process, and I think it's harder and harder for him because he's so busy with speeches and such.
Did you read the book?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it
And the
helpful for
movie.
you? That book?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is reading that book what gave you the idea to bring a statue?
I think it was the movie. I watched the movie, and I can't remember exactly why, but it may be, and this is only a maybe, at the end of the movie, they might have said something about there being a real statue like that. So I looked it up on the internet and started reading about it, and I thought, oh, Oshkosh needs this. I need to do this.
All right.
And the statue when Richard Paul Evans had it commissioned, he dedicated it to parents who've lost children. Now that doesn't mean the memorial is just for parents, it's for everybody, but the statue itself he dedicated to parents. So I thought it was very fitting for our group to bring that to town since we're grieving parents.
Okay. I want to make one point clear, Cheryl,
Sure,
if I
sure.
could. We would all agree that around the country there are some groups that deliberately want to place religious symbols in public spaces because that's their ideology. You are not part of any group that is trying to provoke a controversy, correct?
I'm a mom who lost a child.
Right. So this is not any. I want to make sure everyone understands this. This is not any ploy by Jerry Falwell's group or any group, right? You're a
No.
grieving parent who wanted to place a statue in a park. I'm sure that when you went into this, it never really occurred to you that there could be a conflict.
Not like this.
All right. Okay. Well, I just want to make sure people understand that because
Right.
that's been part of what has gotten me upset on this. I mean, I have a lot of mixed feelings about this, but I have never thought that you or your husband or compassionate friends are part of any conspiracy to put religious symbols in public places.
Or that
Okay.
it's any kind of a political statement that's,
Right.
that's being made.
Right. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're all clear on that because I know that there have been some battles around the country where, for example, in Alabama, where the judge purposely wanted to put the Ten Commandments in the courthouse to provoke this kind of controversy. You're not trying to provoke a controversy.
No.
It has happened, but you were not trying to provoke that.
Right.
Right.
In fact, you are so not wanting controversy that before we started to tape this show, you had indicated to me that if another spot could be found that was peaceful and would be suitable for this type of statue, you and your husband would be certainly amenable to that, right?
Right. I would discuss it with the rest of the group as well. So we're doing this as a group. I'm the compassionate friends.
Yeah, and I just would like to give a word of thanks. I had contacted Eileen Conley Kiesler because I had gotten a call from a city resident who said, you know, can you maybe do this or can you do that? I told her that I would be happy to if she didn't feel comfortable doing it. So I went ahead and contacted Eileen Conley Kiesler, the executive director of the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation, let her know what the proposal was, and that was that perhaps there would be some business owner in town or a group or even a private resident who has some land that they wouldn't mind donating a small parcel or a small tract of that land suitable for the statue. Eileen has been very, very helpful in this area, and I want to thank her for that effort. And she has come up with a nonprofit group that she said is willing to at least work with you folks on getting you some land. And I'm not sure if it's the one that you had mentioned to me off camera or not, so we won't bring that up. But suffice it to say, you're not dead set on the park if something similar can be found.
Right.
Okay.
Tell everyone who Eileen is. I'm not sure everyone knows who Eileen Conley Kiesler is.
Well, as I had mentioned, she's the executive
Okay.
director of the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. Knows a lot of people and has worked her magic in many, many ways for the amount of time that she's been in the city here. And why the Christmas box angel statue? Why that particular statue? Some have said, why not a statue of a mother and a child? Or why not just a child? Why this particular statue?
I'm glad you asked that. It wouldn't have mattered to me that it was an angel or a mother holding a child or a bird or a dove or what. I chose it because it was dedicated to parents that have lost children, and that's what struck me. He happened to have used an angel for whatever reason, I don't know.
Right.
Right. Sharon, as you went through with the Parks Board and the city, did anyone in the city alert you that there could be a controversy over this? Mr. Stefani, for example?
Yes, we talked about it when we were looking for for a site, and that it would be religious to one religion, and we all got talking and realized that no, it would, if they're going to look at it religiously, it would represent many religions, which is what you have to do if you put something religious out, is represent many religions.
Oh, so
And-
this issue did come up then?
Right, when we were looking for a spot. And then again, I think when I brought it to the Parks Board, and it might have been briefly talked about, but it's not a blatant religious symbol.
Yeah, to your knowledge, however, Mr. Stefani never, say, solicited any legal opinion from Mr. Kraft as to whether something like this could be a problem.
I have no idea
All right.
what he did.
All right.
No.
All right. Well, I'm interested to hear that, because my understanding was that the issue didn't even come up,
Right.
but it did come up. The mayor has said that this is a done deal. How important has Mr. Castle's support for you? How important has that been?
All the support that I've gotten
Mhm.
has been wonderful, regardless who it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
This has been incredibly difficult and painful
Sure.
for me, because I wanted it to be something positive and good to do for the city and for parents and
Mhm.
anyone who's lost a loved one. So all the support has been helpful.
And you are currently, you're still raising money for the statue? right?
We still have donation brochures out for bricks. That's all we're doing at this time, is
Okay.
selling bricks.
Okay.
Off camera, you can give information on camera if you'd like about how they contact you to make a donation or whatever, but off camera I'll also get that information from you, and I'll be happy to put that on the website. How large is the statue? Can you give us the dimensions of it?
The statue is about 4 feet 3 inches tall, and the wingspan is 5 feet
Okay.
wide.
Okay. All right.
And then we were going to put a 3 to 4 foot pedestal underneath that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead.
Cheryl earlier mentioned whether it has an inscription. I believe it does. It says hope on one of the wings. Is that right?
Right.
Right.
It the one we saw in Milwaukee, actually, it had it written in several areas, which was kind of nice.
Okay.
And the thought behind that is that you always want to hold on to hope. You can never let go of hope
Mhm.
for any reason, for any kind of trial you're going through. But here, it's to never let go of hope that you will see your child again.
And then there would also be some inscription, would there not?
Yes.
Has that been decided yet? What it
No.
would say?
I would have to discuss that with the group as to what we wanted. Besides having to have on there the Christmas box angel, it also has to have on it that there's a vigil every year at 7 p.m. on December 6th.
Oh, is that is it called Children's Day? Is that?
Actually, it was a coincidence that it happened that day.
Oh.
He picked out the day that the girl died. I think it was in the story, and coincidentally to hold that vigil, and coincidentally that turned out to be Children's Day as well.
This has become such a controversy that Jerry Falwell's group, and I think everybody has heard of Jerry Falwell. Jerry Falwell's group has said that they will help fight the legal battle on behalf of the city and your organization if the city does get sued over this. How important, kind of tagging off on Tony's comment earlier, how important has something like that been to you?
It's been very upsetting for me. I don't want it to go to this point. This should never have gotten to this point, and I am only hoping to avoid it. That's as far as I can go emotionally with this, is that I'm only hoping that it doesn't happen.
Okay, so obviously you don't want the city getting sued. That was never your intent in the
No.
first place. You're raising funds. You need to raise $20,000, is it, before you can actually start construction? How much is the total amount that you need to raise?
It is roughly 20 to 25,000 would
Okay.
be at the high end.
Okay.
The
All right.
statue itself is 14,500,
Okay.
but then with all the other,
Mhm.
the platform and the work and such.
Okay. All right. Tony?
Sharon, you know that much of this controversy is played out through the newspaper, letters to the editor. Have you avoided that? Have you just tried not to read all that?
No, I have been reading
You
it.
have been?
But
All
it's
right.
difficult opening the paper every day.
All right.
The first time we were on the front page, my husband was working, and I opened the paper and saw, and I just dropped the paper. And I called him at work. I'm like, Jesse, we're on the front page. He said, it's okay. I'm reading it now. Don't worry. It's okay to read.
They say everyone gets 15 minutes of fame, or wants 15 minutes of fame. You've had more than your fair share. You know, what would you like people to know about the statue, about your cause? You know, we've touched on a lot of different things, but what would you like folks to know?
That the reason I did this was out of what I've learned from losing my daughter. And with trials, you always learn from your trials. And I wanted to do something to help with the next person that's going to have this trial, or for everyone else who's going through this trial. Do something good from this pain.
Yeah.
And there was never, I wanted it to be a positive thing. There was never I never ever expected this at all, or I would have never started it.
Well, I don't think anyone really expected it.
No.
I mean, obviously, it sort of sailed through the various governmental bodies, and here we are today. Well, Tony, go ahead.
You have a son?
Yes.
And how old is your son?
He's 22.
22. Is he in Oshkosh?
Yes.
How is he handling all this?
He had a crash and burn for 3 years after Alyssa died. He was really, didn't care much about life. But working with the grief group, I find that that's pretty standard for siblings. He hasn't said much about all the publicity now. I think it bothers him. He feels bad for us that this is happening, but he doesn't show any real emotions about it.
How large a group is the Compassionate Friends locally?
I would say we have about 20 people that come and go.
Okay.
They don't come every week, and you might not see them for 6 months, and then they come back.
Okay. And you meet weekly then?
Monthly.
Monthly, okay. If people want more information on the Compassionate Friends, how would they go about getting that?
They can call me.
Okay.
And-
And why don't you give your phone number to folks? You can just say it right out loud.
Okay. When I find it. Oh, 527-1687.
Oh, so that's not your home phone, that's a separate
No,
phone number?
that's the
Okay.
Compassionate Friends
All
number.
right. And we'll, if I could just take one of these. And
Sure.
so again, it's 527-1687. And I'll be putting this information on our website, prior to this show airing. So, well, that's all the time we have in this segment. But I want to thank you very, very much for coming. I know it's a difficult topic to discuss. And again, condolences on your loss.
Thank you.
It's no matter how much time passes, it's never an easy thing to deal with.
Right.
So thank you again. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll be joined by Jean Gams, the woman who does not want it in the park. So we'll be back in just a moment.
We just escaped.
I escaped
I escaped
by foot.
and ran across a border.
I couldn't practice my religion.
I was put to work in forced labor camps.
If I stay in Cambodia, I would have been dead by now.
If you think differently, then you're an enemy.
If you know how to read and write, you're dead. You speak your mind, you're dead.
The only way to express what I wanted to do was to get out.
I got to the country when I was about 14 years old.
I was 20.
I was 24.
I came here with nothing. No money, no English.
Remember America stood for freedom. It stands for freedom. And that's what all my generation, young generation, wanted to be there.
For the first time, I felt like I have a right to be on this earth.
Here, you can do whatever you want to do.
I love my life here. I feel at home.
I'm free to do what I want.
Freedom to me means my life.
How you doing?
Hi.
Hi.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Thanks.
If only child abuse were this easy to recognize. If you even suspect abuse, call 1-800-4-A-CHILD. All calls are anonymous and confidential. Trust your instincts.
Poor nutrition today will increase Sarah's chances of anemia, add to her healthcare costs, sick days, even stunt her ability to learn. And the thing is, Sarah's not even born yet. Get proper nutrition before it's too late. Call or visit WIC. WIC provides nutrition information, healthcare referrals, even food. Your child has you, and you have WIC.
And welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl Hentz along with Tony Palmeri, and we're very pleased to be joined now by Mrs. Jean Gams. Jean, as she said, she wants to be referred to rather than Mrs. Gams. Jean has been, I guess, a lifelong resident of Oshkosh, and you spent most of your childhood kind of hanging out in Menominee Park. And so you live by Menominee Park then?
I was born and raised in that east, what do they call it, the near east side that they're trying to repair now. It was a nice area then. But all the older folks died, and then this turned into rental apartments.
Okay.
And it got kind of scuzzy. But it was a long walk to the park. We worked hard every morning to get our chores done and errands run so we could have the afternoon in the park.
So how close do you actually live to the park right now? Do you
Now?
Yes.
No, now I'm out on a near Target.
Okay, all right.
In an apartment.
So you understand the controversy surrounding this. You understand why the parents and their group want this statue in the park.
No, I don't.
Well,
I don't understand.
You're opposed to it, but I mean, you know what they've said about why they want it. Why are you, now we should say that you are a member, a longtime member, I guess, of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, which is a Madison-based group. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about that group, first of all? Why don't we start there?
Well, it's nationwide. I believe there are about 6,000 members now.
Okay.
I've been a lifetime member since early 90.
Okay.
And a regular member since 77, 78.
And when we hear the names Freedom from Religion, I think that can probably stir up all kinds of connotations in one's mind. You know, some might think, okay, these are people who are atheists and they have all kinds of things against religion.
I know.
Your group, from what I understand from you, is made up of people with a lot of different ideas about religion, correct?
Right. There are even some Christians belonging to the group who just simply believe in separation of state and church. There are agnostics, there are atheists, surprisingly, there's doctors, lawyers, judges, numerous walks of life that are in this group.
Sure.
And it was many, many years that I felt so alone because I didn't belong to any church, anything like that. And then when I found this group, it was like going home to know that there were so many like-minded people.
Were you raised in a church as a child?
Oh yes, every Sunday I was at Sunday school.
Catholics?
No, Protestant. Plymouth Congregational Church right near here.
Sure.
And then as an adult, you left the church?
No, I never joined.
Never joined.
When I was 15 years old, and the senior class was to join the church as a group, I dug in my heels and said, no.
What was it at the time that...
I never did believe it.
Really?
I never could believe it. Never. I would sit there, I'd take something to read, but I'd sit there next to my mother and fidget.
Was your mother a believer?
Oh yes, she went, that's why I was forced into Sunday school.
So what was it, the Oshkosh public school system that made you skeptical, or what do you think happened to Jean Gams?
Well, it was just a little too far-fetched, I thought.
Really?
I gave up my imaginary friends when I reached puberty. I just couldn't see it at all.
Right.
I never could.
And so then in the 1970s is when you found out about the Freedom from Religion Foundation, and you became a member. Let's talk more about this current controversy. When did you first find out that the statue was going to go up? Was it from reading it in the paper, or what happened?
I think it was something in the paper, and then I watched this and watched the council quite often, and well, I was shocked that they would give permission for a religious statue. I have nothing against the statue, nothing whatsoever. Neither does anybody from Freedom from Religion.
Right.
Our only objection is where they want to put it.
So when you first heard about the statue, Jean, was your first action to call the Freedom from Religion Foundation, or did you call the city first? What did you do?
I think I wrote a letter to the city.
You did?
First.
To the mayor or the city manager?
First the mayor, and then I found out that, then I was told that actually this should have gone to the city manager and the council members.
All right, but you did write a letter.
Yes.
Did they ever respond?
No.
See, what is this with not responding?
I don't know.
And so then you got, from the time you wrote that letter to the time that you called the Freedom from Religion Foundation, how much time passed in between those two?
Possibly a week.
All right, so in that week, you got no response from the city?
No.
All right.
And I called Mr. Castle's home number and left a message and asked if he would return the call.
He never did?
And he didn't.
Oh, no. Why would he do that?
Well, because you are one of his bosses, that's why he should.
Well, that's why he should, yeah.
Exactly.
So you got, see, this gets really, because obviously what's happened here, Jean, is that this has now spiraled. And one reason it has spiraled is because, in my opinion, the city has not done its job properly. You're a citizen, lifelong citizen of Oshkosh. You write a letter, you make a phone call, you get no response.
Richard Wolank talked very nice to me when I called him on the phone.
You got him on the phone?
He was very informative
What
and
did he say?
pleasant. Well, he just gave me the facts, that it was in January 24th or 26th when they gave these people permission, and I said, well, was there an argument? Nobody asked any questions. They
See, we now know, Jean, that that's inaccurate, because Sharon Fisher, who was just here with us, correct me if I'm wrong, said that at the parks level, they did have some of these discussions.
Yeah, she said it was rather brief.
Rather brief, but they had it. So, but the city manager told you that there was no discussion.
The very night that it was passed, there was no discussion.
No. Oh, okay.
All right,
That's what he was referring to.
There was none that night. So what did you tell the city manager in that conversation?
Well, I just said I'm going to do all I can to object to it in proper measures, because what is the city council going to do when someone asks to put a 25-foot menorah right next to it?
Yeah.
And then how about a little pot-bellied Buddha next to that?
Yeah.
And this could go on and on and on.
And what did he say?
Nothing. I mean, he was very polite, very courteous, but reserved as to making any of his own opinions.
But he didn't say to you, okay, Jean, I'll talk to the mayor, I'll talk to the city council. He just listened to you.
He told me who to write to.
He told you who to write to.
And I wrote to him.
Who did he tell you to write to?
Him and all the council members, because obviously the first letter I wrote to Mr. Castle
got no response.
Was sat upon or something. The council members, I don't think, every time that I'd hear something like on this program or at a council meeting, they'd say, I haven't seen that letter yet.
Did you write a second letter?
Yes.
To the mayor?
No.
To who?
To Richard Wolank and all of the council members.
All right.
And Mr. Stefani.
All right.
and the city attorney.
Did you get a response from any of them?
No.
See, Cheryl, you explain. Isn't this woman entitled to a response?
Well, yes, absolutely, and I think the response should have come after the first letter.
Yeah.
And the first phone call, because you said that you called Mr. Castle's home, correct?
Yes.
I mean, she is helping to pay his salary.
Absolutely.
And that's unforgivable and inexcusable that she couldn't get a return phone call from the mayor. But now the letter that you sent to City Manager Wolink and all the council members, I think that's the letter that some of the council members were saying they just saw the night of that council meeting.
Okay, I thought that was the letter from Annie Laurie Gaylor, but I'm probably wrong. It was probably
Well,
the letter.
and maybe I'm
yeah.
wrong, I'm not sure,
Okay.
but I know that they said that they had just seen a letter that
Right,
night.
right.
But let's find out, Jean, what it is that you're really opposed to. Are you opposed to the statue going in the park because it says Christmas box angel on
That
it?
proves that it is a religious
Okay.
statue.
If it didn't say that, would you be opposed to it?
Yes, the angel, which is
Okay.
a religious icon.
Okay. If it was a mother and a child, would you be opposed
Belongs
to
in the cemetery.
it? Okay.
Or hospital property. No, you don't want anything in the park that's going to be a downer. We got enough downers in there now. With, well, they took the park away and turned it into a half of a zoo.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Well, they're turning more into a zoo even as we speak.
Yes, they've ruined it, in my estimation.
yeah,
it is
well.
totally ruined.
So you would be opposed to any kind of statue or monument of any kind going in there. It wouldn't matter
If it
what
was
it
a-
was.
If it pertained to religion, yes. I pay taxes toward the park too.
Okay.
And I am a lifelong citizen. And why would I want to pay for all these religious statues? And if one goes in, others can follow.
Well, Gene, we're not going to talk a lot about the Constitution, but when the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, do you really think that they meant that means you can't put an angel statue in a public park? Is that government establishing religion?
That is the government condoning a certain religion. It's the next thing to it. It's implied then.
Even though, and I'm just playing, I guess, devil's advocate is the proper term here in this discussion.
No pun intended,
Yes,
though.
even though an angel, as you know, is not just a Christian symbol. It can be Judaic. It can be a Muslim, other religions.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, there are angels in the Old Testament, which is the Jewish Bible, correct? That doesn't matter though. It's just any religious symbol you think the Constitution says in no
Yes.
public space.
And they multiply.
What do you mean?
Oh, we set precedent.
Oh, right.
And then they just multiply.
Well, actually, that in my opinion, that is one of the strongest arguments in that what this controversy has revealed is that the city has no standards in place for how we decide what goes in that park. So that if the Christmas Box Angel Compassionate Friends put the statue in because they were able to raise $20,000, then if the people that want to have the pot-bellied Buddha, if they can raise $20,000 for that, what I'm wondering is, on what grounds could we say no?
Well, I don't see how we could. I mean, I'm not a lawyer here, but once the precedent is set, then it seems like it's set. And so I see what you're saying.
Why do you want to laugh every time someone says pot-bellied Buddha?
Because I'm just envisioning this.
But it is true, isn't it? That we need to, regardless of how one feels about this Christmas
That's
Box
right.
Angel statue.
That's right.
I hope the city fathers at least recognize that we need some standards in place with which to decide what goes into a park, and we do not have that right now, to my knowledge.
Right.
It certainly can't be what we had for this.
Right.
The wording should be just keep religion separate from government. And public is public. That means all of us. So you can't let just one group. What about the Muslims? What about the Buddhists?
Well, what about, Gene, I've heard this argument, if we were to take a referendum on this, probably, I'm sure you would agree, 75% of the public would say, I have no problem with putting that in the park. What would you say to that? The public wants the statue in the park.
It still shouldn't be allowed because it would just grow. And I've got a very interesting writing that I would like to share with you sometime. It said, if the majority is not always right and should not always be catered to, because they would choose some harmless scribbling to Tolstoy. They would turn down a beautiful concert in favor of some other type that we don't care for. The majority shouldn't always be allowed to rule.
Yeah. Well, yeah, majorities often make really bad decisions.
Bad mistakes.
Yeah. They even sometimes make mistakes in electing people they like.
That's true. Jean, one of the things, there was an article about you in the paper back on, well, the one I'm referring to appeared on March 21st, just a couple of weeks ago. And it said, while Gams is sympathetic of the fact that the organizers of the statue have lost children, she said people have been losing children from the beginning of time. And then there's a quote from you. It says, through the love of family and friends and faith, somehow or another, those people pick themselves up and dust themselves off and carry on. If these people can't manage, these people being the folks who want it in the park, if these people can't manage, then they need more than a statue. Is that, I mean, you're a nice woman. You and I have talked, but is this a nice comment to make about folks who have lost a loved one, a precious young woman, or any family member or loved one?
In 87 years, I've seen a lot of people that have gone through terrible times, losing children, losing loved ones. We can't all give in to it. You do have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and say, life goes on. I have to cope with it.
Sure. Well, and I think that they're probably coping as best they can and going on.
What about support groups? What about...
well, I think that is what the Compassionate Friends is. But, you know, we all have a place...
Isn't enough.
We all have a place where we go. I mean, you know, I go to the cemetery and mourn my loved ones, and you know, I do that as often as I can, and I think most people do that.
I do too, and that's the place, or your church,
but I think
or your home.
But for some folks, that's just they're making the argument that just it dredges up too many sad memories. They want a nice, not necessarily happy place, but something that's not so sad, so depressing. That's why they didn't want it at the hospital. Can you understand that? I mean, not saying, okay, it belongs in the park then, but can you at least understand that maybe they don't want a place that is depressing to them?
It's hard because I've had to go through a lot in my life too, but I can't grab up everybody to share my sorrow. You have to take it on the nose. At least my kind does. We don't have even a church to seek solace in. You have to, there are things that we have to take because we can't control it, and so we have to work with it, and we learn to cope. And maybe that makes us a little bit tough and a little bit feisty, as I've been called on several occasions.
How did you feel, Jean, when the mayor said that this was a done deal?
I don't know if you want me to answer that. I was very offended, let's put it like that.
Well, I can't understand why he chose to make this a confrontational issue, but now we're here.
If there were no other place to put this thing, if there were no other place, it still wouldn't belong in the park.
Right. How did you feel when we found out that the Liberty Foundation, Mr. Falwell's organization, or at least related to him, that they would be willing to pay the city's legal fees?
Wasn't that something? But I was very happy at the city attorney's comment. But I don't think one single council member was awake enough to hear it.
What did he say?
He said, remember, you do not have to accept that offered aid.
Yeah.
And I thought, if they're awake, which they weren't on January 24th or 26th, when they all,
Right.
don't wave your hands around, Gene. I promised I'd keep them in my lap. But I hope that they were awake and really understood what he said, because that is really awful.
Well, that would turn this into a circus.
Yes, it would.
It would bring Oshkosh into a national spotlight.
It already is.
And yeah, it already is. And we have so much great stuff in this city that should be a national spotlight. And the idea that we could be a battleground for
that's sad.
It would take the emphasis away from the grieving parents, and I don't know how you grieve at a statue that's part of a national political battle.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't either.
Yeah, that
either.
doesn't seem to make sense. What would you like to see happen at this point? I mean, would you obviously don't want to see a lawsuit proceed, but your organization is going to file suit if this goes up in the park, right?
That's what they would consider. I really don't know what their plans are at this point.
Mm-hmm.
No, nobody likes to see a lawsuit. I would be very happy if the Fishers would settle on some of these other offers for placement.
Mm-hmm.
That to me would be fine.
Right.
And then this whole thing could be dropped.
Okay.
Well, just going back to the city attorney's comment about that they, don't necessarily have to accept this thing from the Liberty Foundation. I think that if they did that, I mean, you're a constituent and the Fishers are a constituent. And I think you made the point, Tony, if I'm not mistaken, on your website, that if this is a battle to be fought, and they believe in their position on this, their vote on this, that they should expend city funds to do it.
Absolutely.
Perhaps the Liberty Foundation would donate the money then to, the statue.
Yeah, or something.
And maybe helping find a good place for the statue. Go ahead.
Did I understand you, Mr. Palmeri, would be in favor of?
No, I'm saying that if the city wants to go forward with this lawsuit, then it means they believe in this strongly enough that they should expend city funds for that. If they're not willing to expend city funds, which I don't think they are willing to, then they should be taking the leadership to make sure that the statue goes somewhere else.
I see.
That's my point. To say that we strongly believe that this should go in the park, but we're going to take Jerry Falwell's money to pay for it. Well, no. That says that you really don't believe in this cause very strongly. That's a cop-out.
But we also heard that night at that same meeting that up to $50,000 of the legal expenses will come from the city's insurance carrier.
Right.
Although this could potentially cost much more than that.
Much more than that.
I think that they said the one in one of the other cities, whether it was La Crosse or Marshfield. Was $60,000, and this could potentially even go higher.
Yeah. That was the part of it that they were forced to pay freedom from religion back.
Yeah,
but it was more than that.
Yeah, it could be much more than that. Is it your understanding, Gene, that in those other cities, when these have gone to court, the people wanting the religious symbol in the park have lost? Right?
Yes.
Okay, and so
I think so.
You don't think there's any chance that a judge would say that an angel is not a religious symbol?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
And this brings to mind this other thing. I was listening out there, and I understood before this that the Fishers had to promise not to change the name.
Right.
Yes.
It has to say Christmas box on it.
All right. Christ.
Yeah.
Mass. How much closer to Christianity can you get?
Yeah. That pretty much does make it a blatant religious symbol, I believe, when it has the word
I think so too.
Christmas on it.
There's no getting away from it. And add to that an angel, it's a religious icon.
See, I don't think the city council, when they voted on this, knew about the Christmas. I think they knew it was called Christmas Box Angel Statue. But
After a story.
Yeah. I don't think they knew that it had to have it inscribed on the statue, I would think that for most of them that would make a difference.
I would think so.
I would think, especially since, as we said before, they have no standards in place.
But I've been totally surprised all
Yeah.
along here.
Well, and it doesn't seem that
The
it
way
has
that-
made a difference for at least two of our counselors.
Yeah.
You know, Bill Castle, the mayor, and Paul Esslinger have both, I mean, even now that they know this, they have still plodded forward saying,
Yeah.
this is
I
the way to
understand
go.
that. Jean, since this has happened, have you received any phone calls at your home?
3 excellent ones. One
Right.
from the state of Washington that checks, formerly from here, so
Okay.
she checks the Oshkosh News on
Right.
her computer. And so she telephoned and said, way to go.
All right.
And 2 other ones that were, one is from a lady in town, but she owns a business in Neenah. And she said, being in business, I feel a little like my hands could be tied.
Oh.
You have to be a little more careful when you're in business. But she was so pleased that I had stepped forward to do this. And the other lady that called said, I am ashamed that you are doing this for all of us that feel the same way you do, but we're cowards and we won't come forward. And I said, I'm not a coward. I've never had any fear of any kind in my 87 years, so I'm not afraid to come out.
So, but you haven't received any hostile communications?
No, I've had a couple hang-ups
Oh, you have?
where someone has called, and you know they're on the line.
Yeah.
It's not a telemarketer.
Right.
You know they're on the line, and the next one I get, I'm going to say, you rang this number to say something. So go right ahead. Say it. It's
Now
fine with me.
you are 87 years old?
I will be in early May.
All right, so a lot of people will be watching and will be thinking, what would make an 87-year-old woman very accomplished? What would, at this point in your life, what would make you want to get involved in this kind of controversy?
I'm ready for that one. I have various little sayings that I think a lot of, and one is, I am my brother's keeper. And I will fight his fight and speak for beast and bird, until the world shall set things right. They'll never do that in what's left of my life, but I'll always fight for what I feel is right. And I had a letter from a professor from Platteville College, and he says, way to go, Jean Gams, that's the way I remember you, feisty and never afraid to stand up for your convictions.
Well, you've certainly taken a stand on this, and you know, people are. I think a lot of us are sort of on the fence with this,
Sure.
but clearly there are people elsewhere in the city who are on one side or the other.
Oh, definitely.
And there's no.
There were several
confusion in my
letters
mind.
in the paper that were agreeing with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And I
Absolutely.
appreciate that.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, and we appreciate your being here.
And I appreciate your having me.
Well, thank you very much. And thanks to Tony. And of course, as always, thanks to all of you at home for letting us into your homes for the last hour. And we'll see you next time. Until then, take good care and keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.